Hey, I'm Matt Plummer. I'm here with Tommy. We just climbed Mount Shasta this weekend. I had told you that we were going to record a video up at the top. We didn't do that. We're here by the Sundial Bridge, which is actually pretty cool. Cool spot here. But we did make it to the top. But we want to just have a quick conversation about, why we do that type of thing and how it can impact our everyday life. So, Tommy, why don't you share a little bit about, just why take on climbing Mount Shasta? I mean, it's 14,000, almost 200 feet, covered in snow and ice. Not an easy thing to do, right?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely will say that my respect for Mount Shasta grew after this. But a few years ago I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, but there was no ice, there was no snow, and I think when you look at that mountain staring at you from different places in Reading, it's just begging, come climb me. So I think it's really hard to ignore. And I think the reason to do stuff like that is because I don't know, man. I feel like the more and more that society creates convenience, and
Yeah,
comfort,
yeah.
which is like, I mean, everyone's talking about how do we create more convenience, how do we make things more automated, and it's taking away from some of that exertion that we're designed to go after. And so why I do it, and I think the same thing for you,
Yeah.
is because we're actually created to push ourselves. We're designed to push ourselves to those points of extreme. So Shasta was a way to do that. Yeah.
It certainly pushed us. Yeah. Yeah, and I
Especially
think,
how we did it.
yeah. Yeah, we left at 8 p.m. and, hiked up for about 4 hours, right? We got to Helen Lake, which is about 10,000 feet, around midnight. And then you want to tell them where our plan went a little south at that point.
Well, we thought we'd just need like a few minutes to rest or whatever, but we got up there and with snow everywhere, and then there's these like rocks, kind of in a central location, and so we basically just found a place to curl up next to some rocks,
On top of rocks.
on top of rocks, no sleeping bag,
No
no
tent.
blankets, no tents, and just kind of held there and shivered for a good 90 minutes. We thought we were sleeping, but we actually weren't sleeping. Um, so
Definitely, yeah.
just to get some recharge. So yeah, so we just kind of climbed through the night, and then I think we woke up around 1:30, 1:45, and then
Yeah.
just carried on to the summit.
Yeah, we hit the summit around 8 a.m. And, I think one of the things that is important for these types of things for me is that there's often times in our lives where we can get discouraged or where we can face hard things and we can think, oh, I don't have anything left to give. I got to give up, I'm done, it's over. And I'll tell you, I faced a number of those times to climb Mount Shasta where I was like, I don't know about this. I know
Yeah.
you face some moments too, and I feel like when you encounter those moments when you're climbing a mountain like that, it actually teaches you that when you encounter those moments in your life, you have more to give. There's more in you, and you
Yeah.
can keep going even though you feel like you have to stop. I don't know if that was your
Well,
experience
well,
too.
maybe my question for you is when you got to those points, because I definitely did too.
Yeah.
What made you keep going? Like, what was that thing that crashed the mediocrity, tag of, hey, just give up.
Yeah. Well, I think it was two things. One is, I think there was this idea of like a commitment to the goal and a feeling like, no, I have to get to the top, that you can't fall short from this. But then also this idea of like a belief that I think has been cultivated in me over time of doing stuff like this, where you're like, if I just keep going a little bit at a time and if I just focus on the next step, I'm
100
going to get
steps.
there. Yeah.
100 steps.
Yeah, that was actually key. You want to share your strategy there that helped us get through?
Yeah. Well. So you said number one, just commitment to the goal,
Yeah.
and then number two, just those small steps of progress.
Yeah.
I mean, I felt the same way because one of the times, because it's like dark and there's ice, and I'm from Africa, so ice just is like hard, man. So one of the things we did was, okay, if we can just keep stepping 100 steps,
Yeah.
and then we can rest for a bit and then step another 100 steps, then we'll keep getting there. And I think for me, one of the things, the 100 steps, and then two is just doing it with someone.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I had been alone, I would have thrown in the towel. A third of the way up, I would have been like, what's this for? But I think when you look at the people around you and say, we're going to do this together,
Yeah. Yeah.
it gives you, I would say, probably 60% more energy, 60% more focus, and I would say you can achieve 60% more when you're with people
Yeah.
than when you're alone.
Yeah, and I think there were times where I was like, I'm done, and you were feeling strong, and then I was able to feed off of your strength, and then times where it was the opposite. And so having that where someone else can be your strength when you are feeling,
Yeah, I
yeah,
noticed. I
yeah,
noticed that, and I actually was telling my wife, I was like, if we both had issues at the same time, we might
it
have
would have been
we
bad.
might have
Yeah,
just still been up there. So yeah, just playing off each other's strengths, I think was huge.
I,
Um,
I think another strategy that we used was kind of this idea of like milestones of like, okay, let's get to that rock, then we'll take a break, we'll sit down, we'll eat something, we'll recharge, and you know that we weren't trying to bite it all off in one chunk, but we were actually like, okay, just take a little bit at a time. Actually, really helped.
yeah, it did help initially for me, and then at some point, it's like those milestones just kept on dragging out. So you would reach one milestone, and
Yeah,
you think you're going to feel better afterwards, and then you get there and you realize there's another milestone. So I think it was good. If I would have known all the milestones that were in front of us, yeah, um, like I said, I think I had a whole new respect for Mount Shasta,
yeah.
because again, 14,000 feet is pretty high, but you hear people saying, "Hey, we've done it," but it commands a lot of respect for sure.
So how do you think that doing something like this? I mean, I think I just do it because I like the sense of adventure. I like, going out there and trying something hard, and also the views. I mean, there are some
Yeah,
epic views that like you only see if you're up there on the mountain. But I also think that it does have some impact on our everyday life. I mean, would you agree, or do you think that it's just isolated, like go out there, have fun, and then come back and you feel refreshed?
no, I mean, it does have an impact because um, I think if you look at where we are in the boardroom, social media, life, marriage, you have these metaphors in your life that you
Mm,
come back to and you say, "There's a story there, and if that story represents victory, then I can take that victory into the next things in my life." And I feel like part of this is, when you summit a mountain, you've
yeah,
created a story that is the fuel for other stuff that you battle through, right? Because if you're in a boardroom, you're like, man, this is challenging, but I just climbed a freaking mountain. I'm dealing with
yes,
some relational issues or emotional issues. It's like, but I just climbed a mountain. It's psychologically, it helps you go. This small thing in front of me is miniature compared to
mm-hmm.
what I just did. And I think those stories that we lived is actually experience, as opposed to reading a book about someone else doing it.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
actually have to do those things.
yeah.
We don't just want to talk about them. And I think that's again why everyone is designed to do that.
Yeah, no, I love that. And when I coach companies on burnout and resilience, one of the things we talk about is this idea of mastery challenges, which is doing something that's hard for you because then it proves to you that you have the ability to influence your surroundings and
Mm,
overcome
that's
surroundings,
good.
which is what you're saying. And so, but so often we can feel like the victim of our environment and our surroundings, and that the forces around us are acting on us. We don't have control over it. But if we realize, oh, and I mean, I would say you get up there on that mountain, you have respect for nature and your environment in a way
Oh,
that you didn't before. You're like, wow, the
absolutely.
grandeur of this, and like, but at the same time, you realize, okay, I can impact my environment. I can have influence on that, and that carries you through. Then when you come into
Yeah,
everyday life,
yeah, and I think like you pointed out, it carries you through, and then the magnitude of the mountain actually it forces you to have courage,
mm,
and I think courage is an attribute that too many people today don't fight for.
interesting. Say
So
more
so
about that. Yeah,
so okay, so what I tell people too is when I take people on different adventures, because that's some of the stuff that I do,
yeah,
is okay, so you're planning your vacations, right? And let's just face it, vacations, you're having donuts, buffets, coffee, whatever, and you're not really courageous at a vacation.
fair.
You're planning your bank accounts, you're planning your insurance, you're planning all the mitigations that could happen in your life that's bad. And so you have everything pretty planned out. But what I challenge people um, is are you planning your courage?
Mm,
Are you putting your courage on the calendar? Because unless we are intentional about saying, I'm going to invest in my courage zone, courage doesn't just, you know, pop up in your
yeah,
normal day life, especially now when in a Western world.
Right.
Everything can be even keel as long as you want it to be.
Yeah.
So I challenge people, hey, how often do you put your courage on the calendar? Because we have to invest in it.
Yeah. That's good. That reminds me of a few years ago where I was like, I'm going to do 40 days of what I called willpower exercises, where I intentionally subjected myself to hard things across a range of dimensions. So emotionally hard, physically hard, intellectually hard.
Yeah.
Because like you said, it's so easy to go through life in some ways without encountering those unless you're forced to. And so it's through that voluntary, submission to the hard things that we actually equip ourselves to handle it when it really comes.
And did you design that 40 days, or was that something that someone designed for you?
That I designed, and
that sounds good.
I went on this. I was like, I want to do something really hard that like I'm not fully equipped to do, and so that was. We've talked about this in the past, where I was like, I'm going to try to do a 50-mile run in 12 hours through Lassen Volcanic National Park with 8 weeks of training.
Yeah, that's insane.
That was probably the hardest thing I've done, and I only made it 44 miles in 11 and a half hours, so I fell a little short, but still felt the the
44
weight.
miles in up and down terrain.
Yeah.
No, that's crazy.
Yeah, it was wild. And I'd only run up until that 8 weeks about 1 to 3 miles, and so at a time, and so it was big. It was big, but that idea of okay, how do we voluntarily subject ourselves to things that push us, so that when we have to, we actually know that you have the courage there. Know you've already built that resume, so to speak, so that you're ready to do that.
You're right. You're right. It's like a bank account.
Yeah,
If you keep investing in it, that the access to what you have, it just grows tremendously. But if you don't, look at kids today. I challenge parents too. Like, invest in your kids' courage.
That's good.
Take them. Do not overprotect them.
Yeah, you're good at that. I love how you do that.
Don't overprotect them, man. I feel like our kids should bleed. They should get hurt. They should feel they should feel the fear so that they can overcome it.
No, that's good. Yeah. Last thing that I wanted to talk about, as I've been looking at Shasta County's statistics, seeing things like from mental health perspective, we have one of the highest suicide rates in the state. We have child abuse and neglect rates, childhood trauma rates that are like off the charts. And I think that there's aspects of this that connect into that, and that can be, part of the answer to this in terms of helping us fortify ourselves internally so that we don't lead into these, or so that we can bounce back from those. You have any thoughts on what that can look like, or how these connect?
Yeah, I think maybe one of the most, because we're talking about courage, pushing ourselves beyond. I think probably one of the most, maybe terrifying things to do, is to embrace community, in a way that makes yourself vulnerable to where you really see a difference.
Yeah.
And because relationships are some of the most scary things in the world, right? So when you look at that problem and that statistic, behind that statistic are these people.
That's good.
And I would say probably one of the hardest things that I've faced is to really get in the trenches with people, because it's scary, it's terrifying, and you need courage. And so I'd say, just kind of like the mountain, or anything that you do, adventure-wise, looking at people and saying, okay, we gotta get to the heart of this matter.
Yeah.
That requires courage, and that requires intentionality. Instead of just going, I'm gonna choose comfort. I'm not gonna get involved in this because it's a bit too messy. I'm not gonna get, next to some of these youth who need maybe father figures. Maybe they need to be pushed, to adventure. So I would say one of the biggest things is, maybe to challenge ourselves to say, how do we step out of our places of comfort and convenience and step into the place of courage, to say to this generation, we're here with you, we're in the trenches with you, and we're not going to leave until you become everything you're supposed to be.
That's powerful. That's good. And it reminds me of the conversation we were actually having on the way to Shasta, where we were talking about how each of us had those situations where it's like there was relational tension, and we both were faced with the choice of like, okay, we could just like kind of give up on this relationship and let it just go its own way. We know that something's not right. But in both of those stories, we were able to be like, no, we're just going to go for it and have the tough conversation. And I wonder how many times relationships, fall apart because we don't have the courage to be like, okay, I know this is going to be hard. I know this is going to be challenging, but
Yeah,
I'm going to step up and have the hard conversation.
that's really good, man. And I mean, you having those hard conversations, why would you say it's worth it to you to have the hard conversations? Again, whether it be a partner in your situation or someone you're working with, but what's the motive?
Yeah. I mean, I think in those instances, you realize that telling them the truth about how you feel about things and what you believe could be possible in that relationship is really what will give that relationship another chance. And also, it's kind of what we owe each other, right? To invest in each other, not to step back and be like, oh, it's not worth it. Like, I think we owe it to each other to invest in those and to tell people when they've done something that upsets us, so that they have a fair chance at restoring it.
That's really good. Giving people a fair chance to restore what was initially created.
Yeah.
I think that's really good, man. Yeah, but the courage. I think what what you live is I'm going to care enough about this, because it's easy. I mean, for me, defense mechanisms of, well, I'm just choosing not to care. I mean, I just don't need that.
Yeah.
Of course, we don't need that, but we also don't need to climb mountains. We don't need to summit icy peaks. But at the end of the day, we're designed for that. So yeah, I'm excited about Shasta County. I'm excited about the opportunity it poses because, um, there's an opportunity, I think, to create a tight knit fabric of community, because of the gap. You're right, community. Where there's a gap, there's a hunger.
Yeah.
And so there's actually a hunger for community, and I think we can actually bring that.
That's good. So would you challenge everybody who watches this to climb Mount Shasta?
Now, if you can see it, there's a reason you're seeing it, and it's not just to say, "What a nice mountain."
Yeah.
I'll challenge anyone to climb it.
And maybe Mount Shasta is too big of a jump for you right now, but whatever it is, go out there, do something hard in this next week. Like, even if it's something small that pushes you a little bit.
And tell your wife or your best mates so that they can keep you accountable.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining this conversation about doing hard things, going after Mount Shasta, and share your story of what you did that was hard. We'd love to hear it.
Yep.